Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you find yourself watching this. Hello and welcome to this Radio 1 lecture. Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry that I have to broadcast via pre-recorded methods. I am currently potentially selling advertising in Johannesburg, so I decided instead to record it so we can still get a bit of a class in and we can then catch up from tomorrow onwards. So we've had a nice couple of first lessons. Um, Understanding how radio exists as an industry in South Africa, where it comes from, the origin points, how we came to be where we are, some of the differences between public commercial stations, public broadcast stations, and our commercial stations and how they came to be and some of the history. So it's my hope that you have a good sense of how and why we do the things we do as radio people. Um, it gives us an opportunity now for a quick second to lean into the idea of radio as a career. How viable is radio as a profession? It's an important subject because it's something that you are directly involved in. You're studying this, and there's a good chance that you may decide to pursue this as a career. And I want you to be aware of how much or how little you might need to get right in order to make this happen. So, sometimes when I'm at work in the morning doing my show, I go through this strange experience where I will leave the studio where I'm broadcasting with like no shoes on in civvies, like shorts, um, and talking about a runner who sounds like Mickey Mouse, which is currently a very funny news story. Um, and then I will sort of see people arriving at the office after I've been there since 4 o'clock. And it's 8 a.m. and they're starting to walk in for their day at work and they have their lunch bag and their suits. And it's this very different environment that they exist in, where they are actual professionals who work normal 9 to 5 hours and are required to exhibit the kind of formality one has at work. Whereas me, I'm a bit of a rebel, a bit of a recluse. I operate in the shadows and I tend to break the rules because I'm a broadcaster. So there's an interplay of these creative and professional voices and sometimes overlap, but basically it's an industry with quite a large number of jobs. And it's not just limited to that of being a presenter or a producer or a newsreader. There are many, many professional avenues to pursue in radio. So we'll have a look at some of those today and how to get involved. Realistically, it is worth being aware of the fact that there are not millions of jobs available in the radio industry, in particular for presenters or producers or newsreaders. You are severely limited by a lack of opportunity because we have a limited number of stations who can afford to pay for us. Um, so it's tough to crack the nod. You have to send a lot of demos and you have to have a fairly thick skin to keep pursuing. I mean, in my career, I know I've sent literally hundreds of demos in my life, and I've received very little feedback when compared with the number of demos sent. When I was on campus radio, the year before I got hired, I managed to send 258 demos, and I didn't get any replies really. I got a couple, and then eventually when I won a radio award, I suddenly had huge interest in me. It's quite funny how much of a difference that made, but that is the nature of broadcasting, and it is the nature of becoming a presenter. It takes a real thick skin. And if that isn't for you, then I don't recommend pursuing it. You have to have a real sense of determination. You have to be almost certain about what you want. So it has to be something that drives you on a molecular level. So it's not an easy profession to break into, but if you are able to crack the nod, perhaps it's the kind of career that you really would be interested in pursuing. Um, and then there are many other avenues to it. Perhaps if you don't care about being behind a microphone, you can become a technician or you can become a sales agent or whatever the case is. There's a lot to fall in love with as a radio people, and there's no reason that you shouldn't pursue it in whichever form you think it is best applicable to you. There's a great description on page 525 of your textbook by Scott Shannon. And basically, to become a good radio presenter, it's important to become interesting. And it's important to be as interested as you are in interesting as you are interesting. You must be interested in people and be an interesting person, and that's a key element in success in radio. Anele says that be as interested as you're interesting, and she's the breakfast show host at 947, and she makes millions every year from doing radio. So she's a good person to take advice from. But to become good on air, whether you're a producer or a presenter or a digital agent, whatever the case might be, a key thing is to read everything, to watch everything, to have some knowledge on everything, and to spend time with a variety of people. So the idea of reading everything, right? So when you can read the U magazine, when you can read the Mercury, when you have an opportunity to pick up an Isolezwe, do it. Take your time, read something because it might teach you something you never knew about before. There could be some great localized stories in Isolezwe that only you could make sense of in a fun and interesting way, which makes you great to talk to because you can talk about a variety of topics. Read books, read romance novels, read anything that makes your mind tick a little bit is an important thing for you to make sense of. So reading everything helps you become a more interesting person. You learn different perspectives, you learn about the world. It's a great way for you to build up that level of interest in you. Watch everything. So don't just have a streamlined version of things you watch on Netflix. Don't just spend all your time watching Netflix or podcast and chill. Find a variety of things. Push your limits. Watch the cooking channel, and then watch the history channel, and then watch, a bit of sport. Watch things that make you interesting, that teach you things, that help you make sense of the world around you. Having some knowledge on everything is really, really important because it allows you the space to talk to many different people. Perhaps tomorrow you meet a marathon runner, and for just a short while, you have the capacity to talk about, I don't know, the Comrades Marathon and the time you saw it run past your house. Just a bit of information makes you really applicable, especially if you're on air. If you have a caller who is from Howick, you can find some common ground with that caller and make it a great experience because you might know a little bit about the Howick Falls and its history. Having a little bit of knowledge on everything is a really important way to, one, make friends, but also two, succeed as a radio broadcaster. Spending time with a variety of people. When we are radio broadcasters, we have this tendency of just like talking about radio. If you put me in the room with someone who works on radio, we talk about radio. That's what we do. My girlfriend works in radio, and we talk about radio in bed at nighttime. It's jarring. It's an addiction. People do it. Radio broadcasters all over the world have the same experience, and so it's an important thing to spend time with normal people who work in normal jobs, who are doctors and teachers and domestic workers. Whatever person we can spend time with, we have something to learn from them, and it makes you a really interesting and therefore employable person. To extend that variety of knowledge bases is an important thing. In the modern world, like something like TikTok, man, you can spend time messing up your algorithm and learning about things you wouldn't otherwise get to know. I've learned about some fascinating things. This past weekend, I went off to the garden route, and I decided to go for a bit of a holiday. So my girlfriend found this like rock pool inside Tsitsikamma Nature Reserve, and we decided to try and have a look at it. Now, granted, we probably should have taken better precautions because TikTok can lead you astray, but it was worth it, and we ended up having an amazing experience in a place we otherwise might not have gone to. And it was a very, very rich experience. And that now will give me context if I meet a person from the Eastern Cape and say, hey, listen, that's a really great feature of your province. It's a good talking point. It makes you interesting. So having the means to really engage people in their own language on subjects that matter to them, it separates you from the pack pretty easily. As a radio person, you're expected to have these skills. So immerse yourself in whatever content you can. Read something new, watch something new, consume something different. Expand your music taste. Put it onto a playlist you would never otherwise listen to, and then press shuffle. Have a listen to what's good out there. So you don't graduate from radio broadcasting school and become interesting. You have to really put it out there, and you have to constantly learn and grow. It's important to inform yourself on things that are beyond your experience. Learn about politics. Learn about the lived experience of those who are more and less fortunate than you. Just, trying to get a sense of it. So in terms of radio people, you need to, especially as a radio student, have a couple of key things. And this is outlined on page 526 of your textbook. Having a positive attitude towards your studies. So coming and genuinely caring. I can't tell you how many times I've had students sort of take my excitable nature for granted and kind of roll their eyes at how much I enjoy teaching radio. And those students never really do well. And it's never really fun for them. But students who just like drop the pretense and come and have a good time as we delve into what is really a fun medium. It's a fun medium, this. Those guys tend to do really, really well. So having a positive attitude towards the studies and wanting to learn more, wanting to get better is great. Even if you aren't necessarily going to become a radio broadcaster one day, there are skills in here in every single lesson that you can take with you and use in other fields. Maybe you end up being an animator one day, right? And you take the skills you learn about making something digestible for the average listener, and you apply that to your particular field. There will be some crossover in every single lesson we do. And that's the kind of thing that helps you separate yourself from the masses and really puts you on a good sort of wicket. A passion for media, love media of every kind, like understand how newspapers existed and consume, listen to the radio, and have a look at there and learn more about how TV works and how the Netflix model's been successful, how YouTube channels market themselves, all those things. Caring about media is really important, and caring about radio. Like people in Durban, because we lack a youth station, don't listen to enough radio, and it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. It's a failure of the SABC, no question. But it also suggests that we aren't taking enough interest in our studies. Listen, because you'll then hear things talk about in the course and be like, yeah, this is good stuff. And importantly, like this course is quite up to date. As someone who works in radio, all the stuff that we're learning is really applicable to me as a broadcaster. I've learned so much from doing this course. Like this textbook is outstanding at helping us understand the lay of the land in the radio industry, and it's good stuff in here. To think and work independently, to take information out there and to disseminate it is very easy for people on Twitter. So to have the ability to think about what's being said and not necessarily rushing to a conclusion, but interrogating it, thinking about how if you sell fake news, it could affect people. Thinking independently and having an editorial brain is a really important skill set of radio. Working outside of the necessity of your team members is also important. If I didn't have a sense of working independently, I would every morning of my life running into a brick wall because people miss gaps all the time. And if you can't fill that gap, you're going to be in trouble. And an important element is the idea of an inquiring mind. Challenge what you know, be interested in things, have the ability to want to broaden your horizons, go to new places, learn new things, have a sense of wonder and a sense of curiosity. It helps you in life and it helps you as a radio broadcaster. And then the ability to work well with others. I mean, I've spent time working in teams on radio that are horrific, awful people who are not kind, who are not generous, who are not kind-spirited. And guess what? They fall. People fail in their career. And the people who are good-hearted and kind-hearted and work well with others tend to find a way to get out of tough scenarios because people will go to bat for them. People will take a bullet for them in many ways. And people who don't do that, people who don't care about others, there are oftentimes deep ramifications and implications for it. And then also good English proficiency. I know that both of you have a good ability and a good grasp of English, so that isn't really of concern to you. But yes, it is something that's important. Be realistically to be good at language. If you are broadcasting on a Khosi FM, you can't be broadcasting with broken Zulu. You got to have a strong sense of isiZulu to understand. So good language proficiency is important. Not perfection. No one's asking for, you to speak in the Queen's English, but it is certainly an important thing to be able to communicate in healthy and effective ways. Let's talk about some of the elements involved in getting hired. And this is going to be where we focus most centrally today, is on the body of work to prove that you've worked an audio portfolio first and foremost for on-air roles. How do you build an audio portfolio? So what you would do is you want to show people how good you are at being a broadcaster, what you are able to do and how you're able to perform on air. No one really cares about your CV. You acquire these skills so that you can go out there and you can sound good on the airwaves. People can imagine how you fit into specific roles. So, there are skills involved in making a really, really strong demo. If you think you've had a good hour on air or a good content piece, there's no reason that you shouldn't cut that audio up and then use it as a demo to promote yourself, to get onto a commercial station, to send an email and hopefully stand out above the rest and sound good. Not every single email you ever send will get a reply. That's realistic. I'm not going to lie to you and say that it's easy to get a good audio portfolio to be listened to by program managers. They are busy running their own stations, obsessed with their own breakfast shows. So if you're a campus radio jock from somewhere, it's not always possible to get someone to listen to your work. But when they do listen, you want to blow them away about how good you are. It's really important to allow yourself to generate great content that stands out from the crowd. No one wants you to be like, oh, hey, this is your boy, Mike V, and let's talk about the weather. And I want to hear people doing some creative stuff that pushes the boundary, that creates something really interesting. So when you're creating a demo, some of the key elements is you really have to use time sparingly. A minute is a hell of a long time in a demo. So every second has to count. Everything has to be carefully calculated. You should put your best work right up front. You create a bit of a hook. You get them in quickly. You sell them on how good you are straight away. So you create the best work quickly. And it pulls the listener in. You don't need to necessarily present a a kind of cover letter situation where you say, hey, this is Mike V from this station. No, instead you create a great content piece really well executed to start with, and you get them listening and interested stats ASAP. Make sure your demo is not too long, and make sure the music's cut out of it. If people are going to take too long on a particular content piece, people aren't going to listen to it. And there can't be music in there because program managers don't care about the music. They can find that on YouTube. They want to hear about your performance and what you do with the music. So they reckon around 2 to 3 minutes is a good length of time. It's done via an MP3 file always. And you want to make sure you just choose the best piece of work, your darling. Choose your darling and then give it to the program manager. They can decide what they listen to, what they don't listen to. So make sure it's also of you. You don't want to hear too many voices. If you say 30% of the words in the demo because your co-hosts are running the show, in most instances, it's not a good representation of you. It must show your skills well. Maybe you have a brilliant moment where you chaperone your team and you pull on their skills, and perhaps that in a unique circumstance might be a good demo. But for the most part, it's a good idea to make sure that demo is centered around you. Decide what your strength is and stand out on that strength. If you are a great storyteller, if you are brilliant at pop culture, make sure the demo showcases your skill set well enough. There's a famous Australian radio show called Martin Malloy that was successful in the early 2000s. And these two guys understood that they weren't radio broadcasters by profession. They were writers. They were comedy writers. So they used to what they call lob to their forehand. They would write really, really well. They'd write radio bits, pieces, skits beautifully, and through that they were able to create an outstanding radio product because they outwrote everyone else. They played to their strength. So whatever your strength is, if it's political, if it's music, whatever it is, play to your strength and do it really, really well from there. And then think about the demographic that you are making a demo for. If your station has an ideal number of black listeners and it's like 90% black in terms of listenership and its aim, putting on a piece of content about Michael Bublé is not going to really work because they don't really get it. They don't really care about Michael Bublé. Instead, making content that works for black listeners and including black voices on it is an important thing. Otherwise, if you are targeting an AC station and you're talking about how hard it is to study at varsity, it's not really relevant to adults. They're living their own lives with concerns that are surprisingly much more challenging than you would think, actually. I always thought exam stress was hard, but no, adult life is much harder. Don't ever produce it. That means not to include too much stuff that sounds like it's not real. Don't put too many effects, or have a bit of bulk in there. Add some texture, no doubt about it, but make it sound like it's live and it's not just been edited to the point of being ultimately unbelievable. This, of course, is all outlined on page 531. Exclude weather and traffic unless you do something really special in weather or traffic. No one cares about the utilities of a specific geography as part of a demo. And finding a right balance between being exciting and being useful, being relevant and being interesting and being practical and still entertain in an engaging way. Let's do a bit of an example. So I'm going to pull up something right now. Should see my screen. Here's an audio editing software, and here's an example of some audio that I have completed. And as you can see, it's quite lengthy right here. So let's have a quick start of this, and here we can potentially make out of this hour of radio. This is Mike V. Welcome to a Monday morning. So what we can hear here is that it shows some radio skill because I'm back announcing, but there's no hook here straight away. There's nothing interesting about it to start with. It's too generic. This is Mike V. Welcome to a Monday morning, the 5th of February, 26 minutes after 5. And it's been a winning time for South Africans. The Boks, Bafana, Driekus, Banyana. And now one musician has changed history once again for South Africa. So what I do there is I probably cut all this out over here. And it's been a winning time for South Africans. The Boks. That's a fairly good hook. That's fairly interesting. This is 5 seconds worth of audio, and it's a fairly decent hook to start off with. It's kind of interesting to hear about where we're going. We got people engaged, hopefully, very quickly on. And there's a nice change in bed music, but I'm not going to try and interrupt it too much. And it's been a winning time for South Africans. The Boks, Bafana, Driekus, Banyana. And now one musician has changed history once again for South Africa. As we speak right now, the Grammy Awards are happening. For the first time in the 64 years worth of the Grammys,
There is a brand new category dedicated specifically to the best African performance of the year. And whilst we know that Taylor Swift has won, Miley Cyrus won her first Grammy this morning, for example, this is the one we are all very focused on because it's our own category in the mix this year. Burna Boy, Davido, Musa Keys. But there was only really one contender. And this person has pulled off a win first thing this morning while you were sleeping. Tyler! Yes! A Grammy has been won by Tyler, the superstar. When she finally was announced on stage while you were sleeping this morning, this is what she had to say about the whole thing.
What the heck? What?
Uh,
Oh my gosh, guys, this is crazy. Like, I never thought I'd say I won a Grammy at 22 years old.
I love how the fact that she's achieved this massive global success, the highest chart placing since Brahima Sakela in the 60s. And she still has no media training. She sounds exactly as she did when she was in school at Eden Glen High or the East Rand of Johannesburg. So well done to Tyler. A real win for the country and yet another reason to feel good first thing this morning. Catch up on the whole excitement of the events on the website right now, ecr.co.za. Click on the East Coast Breakfast Show tab. You'll see the video of her winning the award and celebrating the incredible success of water. That show, by the way, East Coast Breakfast, back on air. Live in studio from 6 a.m. this morning, so stick around for that.
Okay, so in this audio file, that is the full length and breadth of it. I'll delete this and I'll keep what we've just heard right now. That amounts to 2 minutes long. It's not the most revolutionary concept on the planet. It's not brilliant content. It's just topical because people are talking about it on the day that the Grammys happened. This is from the 5th of February, so it's the day that it actually happened. So it's under 2 minutes. It's actually a fine length for a demo. It shows a great range of skills, I think. There's a good hook to start off with. It's got, you'll notice that there is music being used as a tool to illustrate a link, but I'm not including the music of the songs that we're playing. So having effects, which could be music, benefits obviously the song itself, or the demo itself. But having a song in there would be a waste of time. I also think that there's an important bit here where I sell the breakfast show. You can hear me talking about the fact that the breakfast show is coming later on this morning. Many programmers like hearing you selling the station or a product. They want to hear that you can do that. They want to hear that you are able to follow station instructions, which are sometimes given to presenters. It's not necessarily fun, but it's something that people want you to do, especially at stations like Jacaranda and East Coast Radio at 947. Those are common experiences. So there are a couple of great things here. I think it opens with the best work. It's a good hook. It's obviously a MP3. The format sounds good. It tells a good story using hooks and crumbs and payoffs. There's the hooks and the crumbs are the bits of audio along the way to help you interested. There isn't necessarily music included in this. It showcases my personality. I feel my excitement, especially right here.
And this person has pulled off a win first thing this morning while you were sleeping. Tyler!
You know, that sort of thing there. Screaming into the radio is a good thing to show my personality and to be emotive. It's something to be proud of. And I think that I try and evoke that really well. It makes you feel something, hopefully a sense of pride. So yeah, that's an example of how you can take some audio that exists and you can really think about it carefully and it fits the bill of being a fairly good demo. Of course, there might be areas you think could be improved upon, but that's how a demo generally works. So you'd send that off and it would be a scenario that you could give to program managers. That software, by the way, is free. It's called Audacity. It's a free downloadable software. If you want to get interested in radio, download that software. It's a good thing to learn how to use because it does give you skills. I can teach you some of the stuff that you need for that. And that's an example of how a demo might sound. We'll talk more about this throughout the next couple of classes and get our heads really around the idea of the demo. But for now, have a listen to that and have a think of what you could do in potentially your demo to sell yourself really well and how you would potentially think about making a great content piece that a program manager could find value in, because ultimately you are there to do a job for them. You're there to gain their listeners. You're there to sell advertising. You're there to fill the quota that is required of a young potential presenter, and you must do that job to the best of your abilities. So how do you make that happen? How do you really make yourself seem invaluable to a program manager? All right. Thanks for your time, folks, and I'll see you tomorrow.